Thank you. As been discussed here today, in 2024, CBP seized approximately 22,000 pounds of fentanyl at U.S. ports of entry on our southern border and our northern border, as well as coastal and interior ports. That's nearly 1.1 billion lethal doses. That averages out to approximately 3 doses for every person residing in the United States. And perhaps of even greater concern, it's been estimated, as I mentioned earlier, that only 5 to 10% of the fentanyl crossing the border is actually being interdicted. The flow of drugs across our borders is ravaging communities around our country, including in my home state of Alabama. In 2023, an annual report of the Alabama Opioid Overdose and Addiction Council discussed the alarming increase in fentanyl-related overdose deaths and poisonings in Alabama between 2018 and 2022. In 2022, Alabama's SBI seized a total of 8,300 grams of fentanyl, which is equivalent to 8.3 million lethal doses, enough to kill everyone in the state of Alabama, plus 3 million more. In FY 2024, that number was up to 12,400 grams of fentanyl. So let's be clear, these numbers increasing actually represent more devastated families and more deaths. I have sat across from far too many parents in my short time in the United States Senate that are grieving just as you too are. And I just want to say again, thank you for sharing your story. I'm going to have our team clip your testimony, put it together so that we can help begin that PSA. You are changing lives. You're here today not only to see change in law, but to make sure that we save lives and that no one else has to go through what you did. So thank you for sharing your story. And I can promise you with every ounce of me, we're going to do everything possible to elevate it, to ask parents to watch your testimony today, to ask parents to listen to what you are saying so that they do not have to go through the unthinkable that you have. And we are just so grateful for your willingness to be here. What I'd like to know, Sheriff Barnes, you have testified regarding this issue before, but can you tell us from your perspective of a local law enforcement officer why you think the federal government needs a more effective strategy in place than we've seen over the last 4 years at our southern border in particular, and what elements of the strategy should look like, and how Congress can work with the president to actually implement these types of things moving forward?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I have testified to this before, and I think if you look just from post 9/11 where we are today, the threat horizon is much broader than it was back 24 years ago, and it's encompassing all these other categorical crimes, cyber, fentanyl, human trafficking. They're all on the same platform. So specific to fentanyl, we have to work laterally and vertically, and that means vertically with our federal partners, our state partners, and our local partners, laterally with all the different efforts being put forth on the trafficking entities that are disparately addressing this issue, but we're not synergizing those efforts very well. I believe that we have a problem with communications. Okay. If we're going to do a great offense, we have to communicate with our federal partners at the border, find out where their efforts are, how we can pivot around those to get the end around from the cartels, and most importantly right now, be aware of probably the maritime issues we'll undoubtedly face going forward because of the closure at the border. They will pivot around on the waterways.
Thank you. Dr. Westlake, first I want to thank you for the incredible work that you've done as a medical professional and as an advocate working to protect Americans from the dangers of illicit drugs like fentanyl. In my view, we need to be as bold as possible when it comes to taking steps to protecting American children and families from the scourge of fentanyl. That's one of the reasons I am a co-sponsor of the Halt Fentanyl Act. Given your work on the issue, can you comment on the impact that FRS class scheduling has had on the enforcement landscape over the last several years, and if there are any myths about class scheduling that you would like to dispel?
Thanks for the question, Senator Britt. Yeah, so the myths that were there were initially that there would be people that were incarcerated from it unduly incarcerated. It's already proven through the GA report and since then that people aren't being incarcerated for it for the same reason that people aren't dying from it, is because it doesn't exist. And that's what it does. This is, I don't envy the job that you have up here on the dais of addressing the, one of the things you address is the illicit fentanyl scourge. But one thing that's the lowest hanging fruit you can address is just permanently scheduling fentanyl-related substances. There's no impact on criminal justice that's negative. It saves people's lives. It's a proven strategy. It's a win. It's bipartisan. 70 votes in the House last session, probably more this session. So I encourage that to happen.
Thank you. And thank you all for your time today. I am going to recognize Senator Moody. And also, this is the fastest rise to the top ever. You will be chairing this committee as I go to vote.
And it is appropriate.